Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Through you, Mr. Speaker, what we have here is an amendment that offers significant modification to the bill that was heard in committee. This modification to this bill allows for the input of what we heard in public hearing testimony from many diverse stakeholders, including municipalities, interested parties in the solar, and state agencies. Through significant input and compromise, we have before us a bill that offers a couple of primary objectives. One, allowing for a routine and reliable amount of taxation to be collected on solar arrays before our towns, laying the groundwork for a variety of different studies that will allow for future solar development in our community, a few minor technical fixes that will allow for the maximization of solar arrays and solar canopies on rooftops, clarifying the definition of rooftops, and I move adoption.
The question before the chamber is adoption of House Amendment Schedule A. Will you remark on the amendment? Representative Buckby of the 67th, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good evening.
Good evening.
A few comments and questions, if I may, to the proponent of the bill.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I do appreciate, first off, the work that's been done by the good chair and good vice chair from the House on this bill. There's been quite a bit of movement on it today, and I appreciate their ability to work collaboratively to put forth the best product that we can out of this bill. While there are some concerns, I guess I have with it, I think the concerns do not fall under the new language as much as changing some of the existing language, which we've discussed having that opportunity to work together on next year. So I guess the first question I would have on this would be, does anything in this bill remove any control from the municipalities extending beyond what it currently does through the existing law, through you?
Representative Foster.
Through you, Mr. Speaker, thank you to the ranking member for an excellent question. This bill, in fact, offers a significant leg up to municipalities off of what they are currently able to do when it comes to grid-scale solar arrays in municipalities. It guarantees a routine amount of tax collection, which is not the case right now, tax on both the real property and the generation capacity of those solar arrays, and it allows for, in certain very minor circumstances, for a municipality to be able to dictate to the siting council that they have met capacity or will only accept further capacity of solar arrays under certain limited circumstances. Through you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Buckby.
Thank you so much for that answer, and it really is what we wanted to hear, that can be a possibility now for the municipalities to actually profit by this more so than they had been in the past. I think that's a very important piece of this bill, especially moving forward with solar, along with the other changes we made this year, and some of this touches on other forms of green energy as well that's mentioned in here, but brings solar energy really to that next step with it. I'd like to see more of what we can do with this next year collaboratively to make this better. Speaking of the municipalities, I know there is one that's really mentioned within this without being mentioned in this to perhaps hold back the oversaturation of these solar farms that are going in. Would the good proponent like to mention and speak on that a little bit, just for clarity on that part, through you, Mr. Speaker?
Representative Foster.
Through you, Mr. Speaker, I thank the good ranking member for the opportunity to discuss what oversaturation is, the correct term that I've been using often, but is often an understatement. There is one single municipality in all of the Northeast that has more solar sited than any other municipality in all of the Northeastern United States. I represent that municipality. It's East Windsor, Connecticut. People have often jokingly called it the solar capital of Connecticut. They do not want to be the solar capital of Connecticut, but it would be nearly impossible for any other town to ever catch up to the amount of solar arrays that we have cited. In fact, since I've sat here today, as this further iterations of this bill has been negotiated, I have received multiple letters going to the siting council objecting against new arrays that are also being proposed and cited in this area. What we have outlined in this bill, in addition to offering some local control once communities have reached this excessive saturation, is the opportunity to understand what grid capacity exists and where improvements in our grid could be made to improve capacity and overlay that in maps of where there might be available land. That has not yet happened. What we have between a variety of different well-intentioned efforts is a variety of different maps and overlays that allow us to see grid capacity, that allow us to see interconnection points, that allow us to see where available land might be, but where all of those things are all at once is not yet there, and this bill makes effort to require study and get us further along in that direction. Through you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Buckby, do you have an objection if we were to vote on the amendment and then continue once the amendment is adopted?
We could, Mr. Speaker. The bill it is a strike call on the entire bill, so it wouldn't matter to me one way or the other if we do it first or after, whichever it may be, as the strike call is the underlying bill.
Will you remark further on the amendment before us? If not, is there an objection to a voice vote? Is there an objection to a voice vote? Hearing none, I will try your minds. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the amendment is adopted. Representative Buckby.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And it seems that did quiet the room a little bit when you did that part of it in the middle as well. I think that might have helped. When it comes to the caps that are in place, there is some question about how that's laid out and how that might impact different communities. Maybe you could speak a little more on the caps and why they're in place the way they are and how that might be shared across the board. Through you, Mr. Speaker.
Through you, Mr. Speaker, may I ask a clarifying question of the proponent? Are you asking about the cap, the reallocation of unused credits under the tariff program that are outlined in, I don't remember the section number, but the later third of the bill? Is that, you're asking about the unused capacity reallocation? Through you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Buckby.
I am, Mr. Speaker. I do want to mention, though, it is very difficult to still hear her over here at this point as well.
Folks are having a very difficult time to hear each other. If we can show a little respect and take the conversations outside. And Representative Foster, you have the floor.
Through you, Mr. Speaker, the good ranking member asked about Section 7 of the bill, and this allows for reallocation of unassigned or unused credits that are stranded in the current buckets that exist in the tariff programs. These stranded tariffs are already accounted for economically. The impact of them in cost is already determined, but under current circumstances, they're stranded. This allows us to use them. This is a very modest movement in the usage of the current existing credits and tariff system. Unfortunately, I think there are many who would have liked to see more significant movement, the abolishment of caps, and a more significant increase in what is available to be sited solar-wise. However, we were very mindful to not have an impact on ratepayers through changes of these programs, and so right now, this is the movement that we have made. Through you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Buckby.
Thank you so much for that answer, and I think it's quite encouraging knowing this will not impact ratepayers. That's a critical piece and will not impact really our municipalities. So the two wonderful points to bring up on this bill. Just for clarity, because there's been much moving about throughout the day on this bill, is there anything in here that would impose any forced allowance of product on a roof of any type of structure in the current bill as it sits? Through you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Foster.
Through you, Mr. Speaker, no.
Representative Buckby.
Thank you for that lovely answer. I wanted to make sure we had clarity for everyone here. As we know, as we move forward, Mr. Speaker, we're looking at trying to do as much as we can in green energy. While I, as the good chair and vice chair, know I'm a big proponent of one aspect of that with hydro expanding, this actually takes a step to doing more in control with solar as well. I hope that we look into multiple options. I'm sure others will have questions, but I can say this is we've come to a final product. Again, I thank them both for their efforts that I can support as well. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.